Ladies and gentlemen, our next visitor today is a man I'm very proud to meet, and I'm very proud to present him to you. His name is Orrin Frank Key. Not only did he serve in World War II, but he served with Patton's Army, and he was at the Battle of the Bulge. So we're going to ask him a few questions today about his military service. Approximately when did you go in the Army?
December 1938.
December 1938. And when did you leave the Army? Approximately.
May 1945.
May of 1945. And you served in what unit?
Headquarters unit. 404th Field Artillery.
You were field artillery?
Yes.
I was field artillery.
Well,
many years after you were, though. So I understand that you were at the Battle of the Bulge.
We were scheduled to go east, to be on the east bank of Rhine for New Year's of 1945. And our colonel was called back to headquarters, and he called us back, told us to scrape the headlights, and be ready to move ASAP. We moved all night, and in the morning of the 16th, I think it was, of December, we were in Belgium. And as the day wore on, we moved into Luxembourg and took our positions to help the boys in the battle captured in the Bulge.
I see. Now, if you were in field artillery, do you remember what kind of howitzers or guns you were crewing on?
Primary 155s, 105s.
Really?
175, but more or less we were 155.
The 155 tote howitzer was my favorite gun to shoot.
I was trying to remember how far did that shoot? 12 to 15 miles?
Something like that. I don't remember exactly. It's been a while. Okay, now, in all the movies about that war, and especially those battles, they always indicate bad weather. What was the weather like when you were in that battle?
Snow, cold, got down to -5 degrees. And snow was knee deep. Of course, the roads were icy and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So did you ever meet or see General Patton himself?
I didn't meet him, but I saw him many days. I would be moving back up towards the front, and he'd be moving back to headquarters to decide what to do the next day.
Mm. Was he really as tough and cantankerous as the movies make him out to be?
I think most of the soldiers that served under Patton thought he was great. And the enemy, if they surrendered, they wanted to surrender to Patton.
Really?
That's true.
I found out this morning that my Uncle Peter was in that same battle you were in.
Who?
My Uncle Peter.
Oh.
Peter Ruff from here in Whatcom County was in that same battle that you were in.
Well, rumor had it we were going to go east and be on the east bank of Rhine for January 1st, and then cut left and go up there. But instead, we scraped our headlights, and we're in the snow and rain all night long in a convoy. And they had called the 4th Armored Division and 80th Infantry, and those were the people we supported primarily in Europe. And we were the ones that went up and relieved the boys the Sturgeon Stripe newspaper called it the Battered Bastards of Bastogne.
Really? I see. So artillery units are usually attached to another unit. So were you attached to like the 82nd or 101st, or were you guys?
Well, no, we came on the continent about the 15th of September 1944, and that was the time that Patton's Third Army was created.
I see.
And we were support troops all through that up until Sarlaten, where we had rested supposed to rest for 4 or 5 days, and then head east. And of course, the Germans knew about what we were going to do, probably, and so instead of heading east, we headed north.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a friend I had out in Ferndale who was wounded in the Battle of the Bulge.
And who was that? Do you remember his name?
Not really.
Okay.
He was a school teacher up in Ferndale after the war.
I see. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share with us today?
Oh. Well, do you have questions? I don't really know what you want to know.
I read the history of these battles, but it was a long time ago. And the history books rarely know what guys like you know that were there. And there are not many of you left, as you well know. And we're so happy that we had this opportunity to meet you and to have you in our store and to interview you and put you on our website for other people to see. It's been a very honorable moment for me to meet you. And I think, unless you have anything else to share with us today, we'll get you over there for some cake and coffee.
Well, my wife was a teenage girl in England during the war, so she probably had more shells shot at her.
I see you married a teenage English girl.
But she wasn't a teenage.
Is that her over there, or are we getting in trouble here?
No trouble.
So when did you bring her back?
Well, I met her in South America.
Okay.
We married and had 2 daughters in South America before coming back to the States.
I see. Well, Mr. Q, it's been a real pleasure meeting you.
Not only is it Veterans Day, it's also his birthday today.
Oh, that's right. Someone told me that today is also your birthday.
Yeah, only 96.
96. Wow.
That's how old the store is.
That's how old this store is. So you were born in about 1921? Which is the same year that Ira Yeager started this business.
No, November 11th, 1921.
Really? So every year, Veterans Day is your birthday.
Right.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure meeting you.
And meeting you and talking about you.
Thanks for coming to see us.
Maybe it tells people a little bit about what you said about, I can't tell you what happened over there and what happened over here, but this is for...
Go right ahead. Talk all day if you want.
No, I'm talking about my combat experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever happened over there didn't necessarily the same thing was not happening over here. We were fairly close to each other, but not always. Like,
you guys must have fired a lot of rounds of artillery in those battles.
oh, we got the tanks who came back behind us for a night or two. We didn't like that. We wanted the tanks in front of us. But that's the way it went.
John?
Ask him about dropping grenades out of a grasshopper.
Dropping grenades out of a grasshopper? Now, what's that all about?
Helicopter?
Or helicopter?
No, the fabric wing airplane that you guys went up in.
Oh. Well, we had a small airplane, a Ford Observer. And so one day the captain, one of the pilots we had, and I didn't have anything to do and sort of paused there. And the newspapers told us that some of these small planes are being used as a Ford Observers and putting bazookas on the wings and flying out and trying to knock a tank out. So we decided to do that. And so we got up there and I had a box of hand grenades sitting on my lap. I was going to pull the plug on the and toss it out the window. And all of a sudden here comes poop, 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 poop. And that was P-51s, our P-51s shooting at German air. And we decided we'd had enough of it. We went home.
I was taught to adjust artillery fire from an airplane, but I was never taught to carry hand grenades while I did it.
Well, the good thing about it is we just got our laundry back from the laundry people, and the shells had been coming in while we were gone fast enough that they were hugging the ground, and so the people who didn't get in the airplane, which was 4 of us, or 3 of us, we had clean uniforms for a day or two, and they were all full of mud. Having to wait for the next laundry, which may be another month away.
Yeah, war is a dirty, messy business, isn't it?
It's just not a lot of fun. You never know what's going to happen the next morning.
Based on when you served, you were in the Brown Shoe Army. I was in the Black Shoe Army. The Army switched from brown shoes to black shoes, so I was in the Black Shoe Army.
Well, I was in the National Guard in 1938, and my 3-year hitch ended on December the 2nd, 1941, I guess it was. And my 3-year hitch was up December 2nd. And Pearl Harbor was December the 7th. I didn't get out. And so in those 5 days I found out what was going on, and the president declared war.
Well, I think we'll end it there, but thank you very much for your time and for coming in to see us, and we're going to get you over there, get you some cake and coffee now, okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Orrin. My name is John Westerfield. Around Yeagers, they call me Westy. In 1965, I attempted to join the Navy ROC program because I wanted to fly jets. My eyes kept me from that, and a few months later, while I was deciding what I might do, the United States Army drafted me. So I reported to the Armed Forces Induction Center in Seattle on 3 October 1966. I was there for a short time, went to basic training at Fort Lewis, Washington. From there, after Christmas, I transferred down to Fort Polk, Louisiana for advanced individual training in infantry. Near the end of that course, I volunteered for Officer Candidate School and was shipped to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where I went through 26 weeks of Officer Candidate training in the Field Artillery. After Field Artillery School, I was shipped to Fort Sam Houston, Texas. I was there for about 10 months, and from there I shipped over to the Republic of South Korea. Now, I was a field artillery officer, so the Army in its wisdom put me in an air defense unit with a bunch of missiles I couldn't operate, but that's all right. I left the service on November the 7th in 1969. I come from a long line of veterans. My father was a veteran of World War II. So was his brother. His older brother was a survivor at Pearl Harbor. And on my mother's side, two of my uncles served in the Army in Europe, one of them with Patton's Army, and my other uncle on my mother's side fought his way through the South Pacific. So that's our story. That's the story of our veteran family. Thank you.
Okay, hello, my name's Scotty Edwards. I was in the U.S. Air Force from 1978 to 1982. I was a volunteer. I joined mainly because I could not afford to go to college. And I went in they had the training for what I wanted to do, which is a power plant operator. I've served in Germany, Ramstein Air Force Base, the NATO headquarters. I was then transferred to Omaha, Nebraska, which was SAC headquarters. And at both places I ran power plants, backup power plants for the headquarters of, can't think of the word now. The service was very enjoyable for me. I enjoyed my time in Germany. It's probably a couple of the best years of my life. The training that I got in the service has served me to this day. I have been a power plant operator since I got out of the service, and that's what I can currently do. I made a lot of friends in the service. One of them who passed away a few years ago, 30 years as a friend, probably best friend I've ever had in my life. And I follow with a cousin that served in the service in the Navy and an uncle that served in the service, and I had another uncle in the Air Force. And that's about all I can think of.
Well, the next person we're going to interview here is my cousin Jeffrey Ruff. Jeff and I, by a strange coincidence, were in the Army at the same time, but as a greater coincidence, we were both at Fort Sill, Oklahoma at the same time. So I'm going to let you hear from Jeff.
Well, as John just said, my name is Jeffrey Ruff. I was a graduate of Ferndale High School in the class of 65. I was inducted into the U.S. Army in November 8th, 1966. I was mustered out in November 7th, 1968. I had my basic training in in Fort Lewis, Washington. I did my AIT in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. I was assigned to Headquarters Battery, 8th Battalion, 17th Artillery, 4th U.S. Army in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. My dad's name was Peter Ruff. He also served in the United States Army. He was in the 40th Artillery, 3rd Army. He served under George Patton. He landed on a place called Utah Beach, which is next to Omaha Beach, in July of 1944. He participated in something called the Battle of the Bulge. He traversed across France and was in Germany at the end of World War II. My brother's name was Daniel Ruff. He was in the infantry. He served in the U.S. Army and was in Vietnam. His body and mind left the U.S. for Vietnam, but only his body returned. He was deemed 100% mentally disabled when he returned. He was a victim of the war. My cousin John, as he mentioned there, was also a member of the artillery. Him and I served together for a while in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and our family has always been a part of the military. Now, there's a little known fact in this county, Whatcom County, that I stumbled across a couple of years ago. They're down in Hovander Homestead Park near Ferndale. There is a war memorial for the Vietnam veterans, the ones that didn't come back. It's on the south side of the park, the Hovander Homestead Park. It's south of the big red barn down there. There's a big rock with their war memorial attached to it. It has the names of the 28 young men. These are kids, really. They're 18, 19, 20 years old. Their names are inscribed upon it. They're all from Whatcom County. I was surprised to see that when I stumbled across it. I'm going to read their names. Please forgive me if I don't pronounce it correctly, but I'll see what I can do with that. Their names are as follows: Arthur Bengen, Roger Bragg, Keith Brandt, Howard Burke, Daniel Cheney, Paul Combs, Daniel Donnellan, Charles Dupay, Mark Everett, Robert Hems, John Higman, Dwayne Kinkle, Robert Maynard, Donald Nelson, John Odell, James Quinn III, Rainier Ramos Mia, Kenneth Reed, Thomas Reyna, John Roper, Roger Sparks, Kurt Starkey, Donald Steinbrenner, Alan 10K, Richard Thibault, Charles Van Allen, plus two fellows that I knew personally. One of them was Andy Bornstein of Bornstein Seafoods from around here. And the other was a fellow that I grew up with, went through grade school, graduated from high school with, was a dear friend of mine, Dwayne Dubb. I'll never forget the day I heard about his death. I was pulling KP in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and got the letter from my folks that he was no longer with us. It was a very sad day for me. These are the 28 names of the fellows that didn't come back from Whatcom County. These are 28 names of the 58,200 men and women killed in Vietnam. I'd like to thank Cousin John for what he's done for the veterans around here. I would also like to thank Brad and John of KISM 92.9 radio for their support of the veterans. I listen to their programs daily on the radio. They've been very supportive of the veterans. And by the way, you guys, I am the fellow that lost his ear in a train wreck up there in the Alaska, Yukon area. And thank you very much for the gift certificate to the Rockfish Grill. Thank you, guys.
My name is Mario Bonilla. I served in the Navy from November of 67 to 71. 4 years in the Navy, and did a couple of what we call Westpacks. Went to the Philippine Islands, and then there we had detachments in Cam Ranh Bay there in South Vietnam, and then Utapao, Thailand as well, and had some experiences there. I was in Memphis, Tennessee, when Martin Luther Jr. King was killed, which was an experience for me. And being a West Texas man, seeing 6 inches of rain fall in a tornado was the scariest thing that I always saw. Of the stories that I have to tell, I guess my biggest one is the strength and the resilience of my wife while I was gone for 6 months at a time. And there are many other wives as well, and girlfriends that had to end up suffering an awful lot. And I pay tribute to her, that she was able to end up keeping my family strong and my kids safe, and that she was able to have a life. And back at the first time I went to the Philippines, we didn't have any email or text or anything like that at all. We wrote letters, lots of letters, and still have all those letters, and they're treasures to myself and to my children. I had been thanked for my service in Vietnam in the last 8 to 10 years, many more times than I ever did before, after my service originally. I don't know why that is, but it makes me feel good when somebody says that. And I'm hoping that other veterans out there have the opportunity to be able to be in the panel and getting a smile when someone tells them that thank them for their service.
The next interview we're going to do is with my friend Danny Burns. When I moved up here from Arkansas in 1953, Danny was one of the best first people I met, one of my first friends, and we've been friends ever since. So I'm going to let Danny tell you about his military service.
Thank you, Wesley. My name is Daniel A. Burns. I served in the United States Army, 3 years active, 17 Army Reserve. I joined the Army in December 29th, 1966. I got out 10 December 1969. I was a sergeant first class. Places I served was the Republic of Korea. I served there in 1968. I think the most remarkable thing that I did is I was honored to escort Joseph Jeremiah Williams home from Hamburger Hill in Vietnam. I delivered his body to his home in Holcomb, New York. Other than that, I had a real good time in the military. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stephen Sturck, and I was in the Army. I was in the Army from 1990 to 1994. My MOS was 12 Foxtrot. I was stationed in Aberdeen Proving Grounds, Maryland, and also in Camp Castle in Korea. I got out of the Army and then also went in the National Guard from 1994 to 1998 with the unit here in Bellingham. My uncle Truman Sturck also served. He was in the Navy as a pilot, and currently my nephew Trevin Harris is in the Air Force. He is a lieutenant and he is a drone pilot.
Name George Chilson, CHILSON, U.S. Air Force, 1955 to 58, November 58. And had 6 brothers served, 2 retired, 1 Air Force, 1 Army. And most of them served in either Korean or Vietnam, or at least during that time. 2 of them served 2 trips to Vietnam. I guess that about sums it up.
Okay, my name is Steve Halterman. I served in the U.S. Navy. I'm a bosun mate, second class. Served from 1971 to 1975. Said my rank was bosun mate, second class. I served 3 tours in Vietnam, but spent time from Korea all the way down to Australia. I guess a memorable thing during Operation End Sweep, after we had mined the harbors in Vietnam. We were on, I drove landing craft. I was part of Assault Craft Unit 1, and we were there to assist the helicopter pilots in case we had someone go down. And we did have a helicopter go down, and I was able to go in and rescue the 2 pilots that were there, and then they ordered me to anchor in the minefield overnight while they so they could salvage the helicopter later on. And then they just took the pilots off, and never knew their names, rank, anything. They were, but that was a memorable moment that I had. We usually think of the good times and forget about the bad, and kind of bury it. But I had a good time. I enjoyed the Navy. I support it, and I support all the branches of the service. Wish everybody would spend, at least 2 years in the military. And that's about all I've got right at the moment. Thanks.
All right. Hey, my name is Josh Perry. Grew up here in Bellingham. I served in the Marines from 2005 to 2010. I was a 0602 communications officer and loved it. It was just one of the great experiences of my life. I was a captain when I got out. I went the officer route because I had a degree when I got in. Most of the time I was in the Marines, I was based out of Okinawa, Japan, kind of the Hawaiian Islands of Japan, about 1,000 miles south of the mainland, and went all over the Pacific with the 3rd MLG there in Japan, Indonesia, Korea, Philippines, Thailand, Australia. Just loved it. It was a really great experience, served with a lot of awesome Marines. And then kind of the final thing was a 10.5-month deployment to Afghanistan in 2009, 2010. I really appreciated Yeager's doing the interviews today and chance to share a couple of things that really occurred to me as I was serving, is just that I was in a long line. There's a tremendous long line of folks, men mostly, but men and women, stretching all the way back to founding fathers and the Revolutionary War, and just what a cool thing it was to be in that line and to serve in that line of folks. And now I've stepped out of it, and now there's a new line. There's the folks that are out there on the front lines today, right now, this moment, doing their part. So that was really neat. And then the other thing that really impacted me was in Afghanistan. We didn't lose too many people. It was going reasonably, as well as Afghanistan ever went. But the few people we did lose, the whole base. I was calm, so I was not in combat. I was on a FOB there. We'd come out, and typically it'd be the middle of the night. They'd gotten killed that day somehow, and they'd take them into the back of a C-130 and start them flying home. And it's just really cool to see them. That was sacrifice, and that's what we honor today here on Veterans Day. So just seeing that, guys that had taken up taken their stand, and we had it way better than a lot of people did in Vietnam and World War II and other stuff. But it's just a great privilege, and I really count myself lucky to have served and to live in America. It's such a privilege. So thanks again, Yeagers, and appreciate you guys.
My name is Patrick L. Kern. I served in the United States Navy. I was a bosun mate, 2nd class. I served from 1972 to 75. I was separated in the end of 75. Place I served with Vietnam on the river boats, then USS Enterprise for majority of my time. I was on river boats for a very, very, very short time. Who do I remember today? It'll be my brother Michael Kern. He served in Vietnam from the get-go. He was there in 61 to 63, 64. He was there when it was just going on, basically. And my brother told me a lot of crap. He told me not to go, but I went anyway. I had a lot of friends out of high school that went to Vietnam. The day of our graduation, we had one hell of a party at my mom and dad's house, and nobody left that night. My dad had to wake me up to move him out of the driveway. It was too cool. And half of them came home, and the other half did not. So personally, it if you looked on my website or on my Instagram, we were the best the American had at that time.
My name is William Moore. I was in the California Army National Guard. I was an armored recon specialist in an armed cavalry unit. My date of service was 7/1 of 60 or 12/31 of 66. Discharged on January 1st of 72. I was an E5 sergeant upon separation. Our unit, we were based in the East Bay in San Francisco Bay Area. I guess my story would be that we were going to be activated for Vietnam service. We signed last wills and testaments. Were served with your rights under the Soldiers and Sailors Acts and how to clean up your civilian affairs before we went. 4 days before we were to be activated, a famous American was assassinated, and they canceled our orders to go on riot duty in the Bay Area, and they took 2 units from Southern California. Being an armored recon specialist, I probably would not have made it home, but luckily I did not have to go. Thank you. It was an honor to serve.